All right, I think we're back. Uh, Sorry for the long delay between streams. I had to get a new computer, which I'm using now. It's a laptop, so there shouldn't be any problems from my hardware. I mean, there could be internet problems and things like that, but hopefully not. Hey, Andrew, good to see you. Is my sound okay? It should be okay. I just tested it a few minutes ago, but you never know. See if I could share here. Oops. Oop, that's not the right button. Okay, cool. Thanks. Um, so I did start this presentation for a few minutes the other day, or like a few weeks ago. Um, but I'll just redo that part quickly because I had to get rid of that live stream. So just wanted to say thanks to Jay Dreamers. He sent me this image. I think it's really cool. It really like exemplifies the putting the puzzle pieces together, which is what we're all doing here. So I just think the more people that realize that this whole thing is a puzzle that actually makes sense, it's an important concept to grasp, really, because it's just so out there, that the world is scripted, that the Mandela effect is this supernatural thing that's happening, and that both the world script and the Mandela effect are both talking about the exact same things. The all the symbols, the keywords, the phrases, all the different intricacies of the world script are also in the Mandela effect, and it's really quite. It's like it's a miraculous puzzle from God, in my opinion, and I just think that people will gain a much better understanding of how the world works the more you understand this concept and look into it. And also, I just want to say like a blanket recommendation, obviously, to Jay Dreamer's channel because um, I'm going to be talking in these next few live streams a lot about the North Pole Mountain and that entire area and all the symbols associated with it. And I've learned a ton from his channel about all that, including the Blue Beam stuff as well. It'll take a while to get to the Blue Beam, but I'll talk about it, pretty much every stream. But I'll eventually do a whole stream just on that. So here, let's just start with this North Pole area that we're told about. Sorry, I'm just kind of checking things. I'm a little distracted. Just got to get back into the swing of things. Um, all right, so like this is kind of like a typical like Rand McNally map of the world that you might see in like a classroom or something. And these maps, okay, you can see my cursor. They used to have the North Pole up here at the top. It used to be like a white icy sheet up here at the top, and I clearly remember that. And now, pretty much, you can find maps and things of the North Pole ice cap, but not these like official maps, not like classroom maps. Like I said, maybe there's like one or two or something, but definitely um, not what I remember. And I think that it was removed for a reason. So here's like a typical globe. These globes used to have an ice cap right here at the top. Hey, Susie, good to see you. Wendy, good to see you. Yep, Wendy also remembers the ice cap. There was like a very, noticeable thing. There was always like a polar ice cap, and a lot of like global warming people talked about it all the time too. And even Brian Stavely did this stream once where there was these two people arguing about the polar ice cap and the um, like the debate over how it's going to melt and how quickly it will melt, and they're all pointing at this polar ice cap on Google Earth, and there's no polar ice cap there now. I think you can do something to make the polar ice cap appear on Google Earth, but it doesn't appear there normally. And you could clearly, in that video that Brian did, you could see them all pointing at the ice cap and talking about it, and there's literally nothing there that they're talking about. So here's this North Pole area again on a globe. Here's another standard map with no nothing of the North Pole mentioned or anything at the top here. Here's an older one that looks like it's from like the 70s from a classroom, and there's nothing here at the top. There used to be like a white part here, just like Antarctica. It wasn't, known as a continent, but it was known as like, a sheet of ice at the top of the globe or at the top of the map. And here's another one, this, standard, pull down map that you would see in like a classroom, nothing at the top, it just says Arctic Ocean. Yeah, Pinkster. I do think it's a Mandela effect, yes. And also the name Mandela, you typed it with 2 L's, which is how I remember Nelson Mandela's name being, but, I think that's also a Mandela effect where now, Nelson Mandela's name only has 1 L. And that, of course, affects the entire Mandela effect. So here's an image of Google Earth. If you, were to just look at it without any kind of extra, filters or add-ons or anything, and there's nothing at the North Pole, but they do, interestingly enough, have this dark shape here, which is, right around where the North Pole is. And here's Greenland, just for reference, and here's the United States and Alaska. And I'll be talking about all this coming up here. I just have to kind of get back into the swing of things. Yeah, Wendy, isn't that crazy? There's so many things that are Mandela affected. It's really kind of crazy how the world isn't talking about this all the time because almost everything is Mandela affected. People just don't notice. But this is from the King Kong movies. King Kong lives on this Skull Island, and notice the shape here. Here's another map of it. Notice this like shape with like the kind of the cutout here for the mouth, and then you have like the eye here, and this is called Skull Island. And here it kind of looks just like that with the mouth on the left and like the eye in the center. So whether this is really how the Earth looks, at the North Pole right now, obviously I've never been there. I can't tell. There could be the 4 continents, like we've talked about. There could be just ocean. There could be really anything there. There's a lot of options. There's different scenarios where we've had things in the North Pole for certain in the past and likely in the future. But right now there might actually be nothing there. But they are showing you this Skull Island outline, which I find interesting because King Kong definitely lives at the North Pole. Okay, here we go again with that. And they even tried to like muddy the waters as they often do by putting Skull Island on Google Maps to promote this King Kong movie. So like just think about how ridiculous that is. Like we're supposed to um you know we're supposed to like take Google Earth seriously like it's this like realistic look of the world, and they're putting fake things on it like Skull Island from King Kong. And this isn't at the North Pole. They put it's somewhere else. But it represents the North Pole Island, of course. And now if you look up, Google Map or Google Earth and Skull Island or Google Maps and Skull Island, um, they you'll get this, um muddied water thing where you won't know what, like, for people who are just doing like a cursory like glance at this stuff, they won't know exactly what to make of it, and they'll just kind of probably read it for 30 seconds and then go on to the next topic. So that's what these things are designed to do, is to divert people who don't have the attention or the care necessary to find the truth. But they have that inkling of wanting to find the truth, or they heard about it from someone, so they look it up, and then there's this, diverting path that just takes them to nowhere. That's often how this system does things with the Mandela effect and with the world script. They like to muddy the waters like that with the internet. So here's just, you could look this up on your own. There's just some more Skull Island stuff with this Google Maps thing. Also, something to keep in mind, which is extremely important, is Golgotha. This is where Jesus was crucified, and it's literally named the place of the skull, or the place of a skull. So, in my opinion, this all happens. This could happen anywhere, like at the actual Golgotha location, but it all represents this North Pole area, and the real Skull Mountain, is at the North Pole because we're living in the land of the dead, and when Jesus returns, we'll go back to living in the world of the living. But for now, it's the Skull Island or the Dead World Tree. You'll often see like a tree stump or a tree with no leaves, or just like the branches, like it's in the winter. That's also depicting this, dead North Pole of this world that we live in. But I think pretty soon Jesus will return, and that North Pole area will become the central point of life in the world, and eternal life will return to the world with the blue beam that shoots up from the center. So Instead of an ice cap, many old maps show a tall mountain at the North Pole, surrounded by four continents. So this is where we get that X marks the spot symbolism. This is known as Rupus nigra. It's also Mount Olympus. It's also Mount Meru. It's also this area is Hyperborea. This area is likely Atlantis as well. All these tales that we've heard, all these different, you know, uh, mythologies and religions and all these different things that we've heard over the course of our lives and that are important in different societies and cultures. They're all relating to this North Pole area. And here's another map. You could see tons of maps. Jay Dreamer, other channels have talked about these maps. I don't want to like show them too much, but just to show you guys quickly how there are. It's not just that this one map, although I find this map to be the best one, to look at and to visualize. But here's another one with the four continents in the center. Here's a closer look at the four continents on this map. Here's another map with the four continents at the center of the North Pole. Here they have the world divided. This is Antarctica. It's interesting. They call it Terra Australis. There's a lot to get into with these old maps. That's not the forte of this channel. I'm just setting up this North Pole symbolism for you guys. Here's another, Hyperborea map with the four continents and then the central mountain in the center. Here's a closer look. The Arctic Pole, the Rupus nigra, the central mountain. This mountain is also said to be 33 miles wide, which is something to certainly take note of. And again, these are like the four rivers from the Bible leading to the Garden of Eden, which is at this central point as well. And this is also the X marks the spot and the concentric circle symbolism as well. This all relates to the North Pole. Here's another map with the top. You can see they have these four continents with the branching rivers and all that at the top. This is the 1587, I think, Urbano Monti map. And at the center, they have the Star of Bethlehem shape right over the North Pole and the four continents. And here's a map where they have it, flattened out like you would see in like a school classroom. And they have the four continents, laid out up here. So these are how maps used to be made in the past. Now you can, of course, find maps without these continents, but you can also find a lot of maps, with these continents. So here's the four continents at the top. Again, the four continents at the top. And I just found these from, a quick Google search. So, I mean, you could look into this as much as you'd like, of course. Here's the continents at the top of this map. And this is interesting. I saw this on eBay. It's like a little globe for astrology, but it does relate to the continents of the Earth. And at the top, they have the four continents of the North Pole. And let's see. I know you can see, yeah. So here you can see like Asia, and they have like Europe, and here's the four continents. And this is something that was made in Italy in the 1970s. So it's got nothing to do with the internet and this new trend or anything. This was made before I was born. So here again, you have the four continents at the North Pole, and you could just buy one of these on eBay right now. They're like 40 or $50. It's actually kind of cool. And at the bottom, here it says made in Italy. And here we have the Star of Bethlehem shape, which is, of course, the symbol at the center of the North Pole, which I'll get into in these coming live streams, and the concentric circles and all that as well. And here's the main map. Let me just check the chat. It seems like there's a lot of awesome comments already from you guys. Just say hello to some people. Oh, awesome, guys. I think this is the most chatting I've had so far. Yeah, it looks like that. Stop. Hey, Andrew, good to see you. Donut, good to see you. Yeah, Castle Grayskull, Drew. Exactly. That's why He-Man has the Castle Grayskull. That's there's a lot of things with Skull Mountains, which I'll be getting into in this stream and the next stream for sure. Yeah, for sure, Pinkster. Good to see you. Hey, Big Kush, good to see you. Amanda, good to see you. Oh, Mandy, sorry. All right. So, getting back to this North Pole area with the four continents, this is also shown to us in The Wizard of Oz. If you look up the map of Oz, here you have the four continents with the Emerald City in the center, and the emerald location, this is like the heart chakra. This is like the green northern lights that emanate from the North Pole. This is like God's throne that is said to be sitting on an emerald rainbow, which is of course the northern lights that originate at the North Pole. And you know, Frank, what's his name? Frank Baum. Does it say it here? Well, the guy who you know, wrote The Wizard of Oz, I think it's Frank Baum. Um, he is clearly showing us here, you know, his own fictional depiction of what is really happening, or what the world really is like, or what really will be like and really was like. You know, it's possible that these islands aren't there right now. They could be under the water, they could be up in the air in like the apex dome. They could also just not even be there right now at all, because God can literally just change the map of the world at will, which we've seen South America, you know, move about 1,500 miles to the right or to the east, in addition to a lot of other countries and continents moving and changing shape as well. So if there's nothing at the North Pole right now, those islands could literally just be added into the world at any time by God, who's the creator, who can do whatever he wants. So there's a lot of cities around the world. I've talked about this before, so I don't want to talk about it too much because I have a lot to cover here. Um, but there's a lot of cities around the world, like Seattle, that are representative of this North Pole area too, and of course, the city of Jerusalem is as well, of course. So Seattle is known as the Emerald City, which is also Greenland, which also the country of Greenland is also representative of this North Pole area, which is also why Trump wants to buy it. He keeps like talking about buying Greenland, and people take it as like a joke, but he wants it because not only does it symbolize the North Pole, but it's right next to the North Pole. So when this, you know, battle happens, where there's the you know, the Gog and Magog battle, or the you know, I call it like the Kraken army of the dead, basically encircling the camp of the saints at the North Pole. That's what these countries are getting ready to do, and I'll be talking about that here in a second as well. Um, Washington D.C. is, of course, a huge North Pole symbol. This Washington Monument represents the blue beam that shoots up with the pyramid capstone, and down here you have the Vesica Pisces, which is the merging of worlds at the center North Pole area, and there's also concentric circles down here as well, which I've shown before, and I think I have a picture of that too in the future here. This is also known, Washington, D.C. is known as the District of Columbia, Washington, D.C. So, Columbia, this area, whenever you see the word Columbia or something like it, like Columbus, it's referring to this North Pole area as well, because the blue beam is basically the column of Yah. So, like IA is like the name for God. Like it's usually spelled YAH, but it's just the sound Yah. And this is also why AI is like the reverse God. So you have like AI being like, you know, the Antichrist God, and then IA would be, you know, the Christ God. Um, and then the Columbia, you have like the name Franco Colombo, which changed to Franco Colombu. You have the country Colombia, which now has two O's in the beginning, and it's spelled COLO instead of COLU. And I've talked about these before too, but if you look at like Colombian coffee, there's no U in that anymore, which looks really ridiculous. That's another big Mandela effect that not a lot of people talk about, frankly. But this all relates to this Columbia area. Of course, you have Christopher Columbus, which is like the CC, which is like the Christ and the Columbia connection, and he discovered America, which you know, I don't believe that story, but the symbolism is there. They actually say like honoring Christopher Columbus. Here, like Columbia Pictures, this also represents the blue beam at the center of the world. This is like the step pyramid, the Rupus Nigra mountain, and then she's represents the feminine. The blue beam is like the feminine energy, and it shoots up out of this North Pole area. It's like Jesus's life force, essentially, that will be returning to the world. It's the eternal light, and it's also got the colors of yellow, blue, and white. Whenever you see the colors yellow, blue, and white together, it's representative of Jesus or this blue beam symbolism. So here we see the top view. I won't get into these Mandela effects. I've talked about them before. You can feel free to pause the screen if you're new to the channel. There's a lot of really interesting stuff here. And watch my previous live streams too, where I talked about all these Vesica Pisces changes and symbolism and things. But here you see I just wanted to show you the top view of the Washington Monument. So you see it's a Vesica Pisces, which is this merging of the two pillars at the North Pole center, and the concentric circles, which represents the map, and also the mirror reflection at the apex dome, which is a little complex to get into, but for now, it's just the North Pole area is represented by this concentric circle imagery. This is also why we see a lot of dartboards and things like that in these world script movies, because they're saying whenever there's like a dartboard, this is telling you it's representative of a North Pole location. But of course, you have to see multiple symbols. You can't just go by the one symbol. When if you see like a dartboard, an X, a skull, then they're definitely talking about the North Pole. So here's the this is the thumbnail for this video, and here you can see how this is represented to us in so many ways, at so many different times. So here, like Kong Skull Island, here he's the M. He's also the mountain, the pyramidal mountain under the dome. And here we have the castle representing the pyramidal mountain under the dome. And this is also a big Mandela effect too, because Tinkerbell used to make this dome, and now she doesn't. And her name is also split. It used to be Tinkerbell, just one name, but now it's two names: Tinker space Bell. And I'll get into like the bell tower and things like that in the future. But just think about like tinkering with our bell. Our bell is our head, or you could say like our memories too. So like we're being tinkered with, the world is being tinkered with, and it's kind of self-reflexive too on the Mandela effect as well. But there's a lot to get into there. I don't want to get too off track. But here you have like Paramount with the mountain, the pyramidal mountain under the dome of stars. The stars are lodged into the dome, as Tesla said, and or apparently said. And here they even put a line down here to show you that it's this is like the ground, and then you have the central mountain and the dome over it. And also Viacom is another Mandela effect too. This A used to have a crossbar. They used to have crossbars here. This is an old company. They didn't do this. So this is also representative of the North Pole Mountain too. But I was actually going to include the Mountain Mandela effects in this presentation, but it was way too big. So I'll be getting into that next live stream. Oh, also, so here you have the Wizard of Oz. They're going up here. Oftentimes, this yellow brick road in these posters too looks like a pyramid. Not so much here, but a lot of times. And then you have the Emerald City, which is the North Pole pyramidal mountain, and they even put these concentric circle, dome-looking lines or arcs over it. NordVPN, you have the pyramidal mountain under the dome with the blue and yellow, or the blue and white Columbia coloring, and the word Nord means north. And then also we have this, Nordic mythological, apparently a concept of this Yggdrasil tree that sprouts up at the center of the world and under the dome. So this would be at the North Pole. And we're basically down here in like this underworld going through this maze. And then when we get to this portal doorway, we get to the top of the mountain. And that's what we're all hopefully doing right now. This is the rainbow road to the top of the mountain. And then when Jesus returns, we'll hopefully be with him in the center of the world, figuratively or literally. And this is where the blue beam will emanate from, which is also the world tree, which is also the Yggdrasil tree, which is the tree of life. So here's some others. I've talked about these, some of them. So this is like a video game, a really popular video game called Fortnite. And this is one of their maps. It looks just like the North Pole map. Also, Attack on Titan. This is one of the newer, bigger anime series, and this place is actually called Paradise, and it has the concentric circles just like the North Pole, because Paradise would be at this mountain area. Whether it's below it or above it, there's a lot of different theories on that, but it is at the center of the world, the Garden of Eden. And then this is the Devil's Tower at Close Encounters. So of course the devil has been ruling the world. So the Devil's Tower is this, sawed off dead tree. But when the tree comes back to life, then it's Jesus's tower. Let me check the chat for a second. Got a lot of awesome chats going on. I appreciate you guys. Susie, you make a lot of awesome comments. Rolly, good to see you. Thank you, Rolly. I appreciate that. Yeah, thanks, guys. Oh yeah, Diane Fossey. The name Diane, I think that actually lost the E. I'd have to check on that, but there's something going on with her name too. But yeah, there's a lot of like Gorillas in the Mist related Mandela effects, and the mist also is another big symbol of the North Pole because the island is said to be shrouded in mist. And also this is where like the storm happens, the merging of the two worlds, the fire and ice pillars. This creates the storm, which creates the mist. And also mist is symbolic of like mystery, because the biggest mysteries of the world are at the North Pole, at least right now. So this is Jerusalem. This is where the Dome of the Rock is. They also have this tower, which is interesting. The Dome of the Rock. So just like think about that. So the Dome of the Rock in Jerusalem. So the rock is the central black rock, Rupus nigra, under the dome. That's why this thing is called the Dome of the Rock, and that's why it's likely, going to come down at some point, because the dome is going to come down. And this would be a symbolic thing that happens on the world stage. So we also had like the storming of the Capitol Dome in the United States in Washington, D.C., which is a North Pole location. So there you have the storm under the dome at the Capitol. And that was also predicted by Trump exactly 3 years and 3 months before it happened. He said there's a storm coming. And also, by the way, I'm putting together a video about the storm for. I'll probably post it on YouTube Shorts and maybe TikTok. So it's coming out pretty good. It'll probably be out in like a few days. So I would definitely appreciate you guys. It's a great video to share and to help spread the word about the channel. And also, I think I'll try to start like TikTok. I mean, even if it just reaches like 5 or 6 new people, but hopefully hundreds of people. But even if it's just like a handful of people, it's obviously worth it. So I'd appreciate you guys' help spreading that video especially. I'll try to put it out maybe like Thursday. Um, so here, yeah, Dome of the Rock. So here in the Bible also, and you could read this. I don't want to get too into it, but it says right here, Mount Zion. This is of course the central mountain at the North Pole, and it even says on the sides of the north. And the sides are like the uh those four continents. That's like the four corners. Those are the four sides. So when they say like the sides of the north, that's what they mean. And the city of the great king. um this is kind of weird. God is in her palaces. Well, I don't want to get too into it, but this is the holy mountain. There's also a lot of Bible Mandela effects, which I'm not like super versed in. I recommend if you guys are really into the Bible changes, check out John Kerwin at Wake Up or Else, and Supernatural Bible Changes. Those are two great channels who have a long history with the Bible and know all the changes, or a lot of the changes. And also they talk about Lucifer being at the North Pole Mountain too here. He sits on the mount of the congregation on the farthest sides of the north. This is the North Pole Mountain. And this is also the mountain that Lucifer takes Jesus up to and says, if you bow down before me, I'll give you all these lands. That's the North Pole Mountain would be where you could see the entire world, of course. And especially if you're Lucifer or Jesus, I assume they don't have any limits on their vision, like we do. Um, so they would be able to see the entire world from that spot. But it's also symbolic of things too. But I don't doubt that these things happen as well. So here we have the Northern Lights, which I'm not going to say it's a Mandela effect, but it's definitely a change in the Earth, at least, because they used to just be this emerald green color, but now they have a lot of different colors, even like the full rainbow, basically. So I think this is either a Mandela effect and or just changing in the Earth itself. And there's also a ton of rainbow changes, and it's also said, like I said, in Revelation, which used to be Revelations 4:3, God's throne is surrounded by an emerald rainbow, and these emanate from the north. And in the book of Daniel, they talk about the great tree. This is a dream. I don't want to get super into it, but I think it's a dream by Nebuchadnezzar. And he says, let's see, the tree grew. So the tree grew and became strong, and the height reached the heavens, and it could be seen to the ends of the earth. And the fruit was abundant. This is like the fruit of immortality. And all flesh was fed from it. So everyone gets this immortality fruit from the giant tree, which is the Idrisil tree that grows in the center of the world. And this is, again, I think I showed this before, but this is just a close-up view of the X marking the spot. This is why that's such a famous phrase in our lives, of X marking the spot, because it marks the ultimate spot of this mountain. All right, so getting to Lost, the TV show. Here they're showing this split mountain, which is also representative of the North Pole. It's like an M shape with a split down the middle because it's like a volcano. and but it's like a plasma volcano, and the blue beam is plasma that shoots up from it essentially. But in Lost, they're definitely on this North Pole island, even though they set it in a tropical, location, and it's all symbolic. It's definitely symbolic of the North Pole, and they even have like polar bears that are on the Lost Island, which in the show they don't really make sense. They had them there for experimentation, but the reason they showed the polar bears on Lost is because they're subtly telling people that they're actually talking about the Arctic. It's not the a tropical island. It's actually an Arctic island, and it's actually the North Pole. But yeah, I loved Lost too, Susie. Lost, I think, is the best show. It's the best thing to watch. Like if you want to know the world script from watching something yourself, I definitely recommend just watching Lost. It's got like everything in it, and of course, on this North Pole island lives the smoke kraken entity with the tentacles, and you'll always see the kraken being associated with the North Pole as well, because when the blue beam goes up, it shoots through the Kraken, and the Kraken will descend onto the Earth. So here we have the Green Island in Lost and home to the Smoke Kraken. I just said that. So the mountain island is said to be hidden in the mist and enclosed within a perpetual storm. So in Lost, when they get to the island, the pilots have to fly through this perpetual storm, and it's actually very difficult to pilot. And they have to like set special coordinates and do things that don't even make sense in order to get there. And here's the characters returning to the island. They know what's coming, so Hurley puts the blinders on because he doesn't want to go through all the craziness that it takes to get there. And it's a magnetic storm too, so it makes their compasses go crazy. And the Rupus Nigra is said to be a magnetic island or a magnetic mountain, which is also the by the way. So the airplane flips upside down, and night becomes day, and then all of a sudden they're at this island. So everything is inverted and flips. And there's even a landmark on the island called the Black Rock. So there's tons of North Pole symbolism in this Lost show. They even have there's even a one of the stations that they have is called the Hydra. There's a lot of stuff like that. So the magnetic field disrupts the compass. So here we have the compass, and they also show the compass going between 30 and 33 degrees, which is interesting. And here's a map of Lost. Here I outlined just a few of the things that are interesting. But here you have the Black Rock, which is actually a ship that crashed on the island. The radio tower is, of course, extremely important. I'll be talking more about the communications tower. Just 1 second. So I'll be talking more about the communications and the communication tower. This is the bell tower, the water tower, the radio tower. This is all about being at the North Pole and communicating with either, Jesus or the Antichrist. And here we have the door, the caves, the Hydra, the Looking Glass. So there's tons of stuff. And this guy here, he's fighting this smoke, Kraken monster. They call it the monster, and you can see it better. This is a lot of these clips I have here or screenshots. They're from previous videos. There's one called the North Pole Mountain, and there's one called Sam and the Highest Mountain, I think. So I definitely recommend checking those two videos out. They're my previous videos. If you're interested in this content and you want to see more than what I'm presenting here today. So in the Tall Grass, this is a Netflix movie that was based on another novel or a short story by Stephen King. So Stephen King always comes up. Stephen King and Steven Spielberg are pretty much the two biggest world scripters, I would say. And this character, this woman, she represents the blue beam and Jesus, and she's actually pregnant in the movie, and she's lost in this maze of tall grass. So the North Pole Mountain is referenced in pretty much all world script, and here also churches often represent the North Pole Mountain. Tall skyscrapers, churches, any kind of like landmark that stands on its own or stands above everything else. So here you see this character. He's looking for that girl who was lost in the grass, and he sees her car parked at this church. And one of the most common symbols for the North Pole area is the Black Rock. So here, this is the Black Rock Mountain, Rupus Nigra, and this church is called the Church of the Black Rock of the Redeemer. So I mean, it's pretty heavy symbolism in this movie, and not only that, but I'll show you in a second. I think they show you there's actually like a huge rock in the center of the maze in the tall grass. So here she is, lost in the grass. Oh, and here, they show the eclipse. So as she's walking, they show the sun going behind this grass. So this is like the eclipse symbolism that I've talked about a lot in the previous streams. This is her brother who's also lost, and he falls in the dirt. So this would be like the black goo symbolism. And here she's jumping and reaching up and seeing the church. Let's see. So this is like the maze. So here's the black rock in the center. Let's see, Black Rock. It's a little dark, sorry, but this is like in 2001. The monolith, of course, is like uh, the North Pole Mountain as well, Rupus Nigra, the Black Rock, and here we see the eclipse happening over the Black Rock in uh, in the tall grass. This also happens in 2001: Space Odyssey. I think I'll show that in a bit. And they also touch the Black Rock, just like the people or the monkeys, touch the black monolith. Okay, yeah. So here's 2001: Space Odyssey. Sorry, as a while I put a lot of this stuff in this folder, so I have to kind of remember what it is. So here's in 2001: Space Odyssey. You have the X and this concentric circle. So this is like the North Pole and the blue beam shooting out of it, but it's inverted, so it's upside down and shooting downwards. And here in 2001, this is like the black rock in the tall grass, and then here's like the eclipse that they show in the tall grass. This is also like the apex dome symbolism, and here you have the person touching the monolith, just like the person touches the rock in the tall grass. So it's all this same symbolism. And if I don't get more into it in the tall grass here, I will in the future because there's a lot of really interesting stuff that happens in that movie. It's a pretty dark movie. I don't necessarily recommend it unless you're okay with R-rated stuff and you're really into this kind of symbolism. Then I definitely recommend it. But it is a pretty weird movie. So here's Under the Dome. Where do I have this here? Okay, so I'll get into this more in the future, but here you can see the road is actually the pyramidal mountain and then under the dome, just like I showed you all those symbols before. And here, these two main characters, they find this smaller dome and it's covered in dirt. So she pours water on it. So this is making like the kraken tentacles. It's also the water above the dome. And then when they clear it away, you have this smaller black rock egg in the center, like Rupus nigra. And here's the characters all kind of like touching it, just like we saw with 2001 and in the tall grass also. And in Shawshank Redemption, there's also a Black Rock World Tree symbolism at the end of this movie. And this is, of course, the storm and the Christ symbolism and all that. So the name is Shawshank. It means the woods on the pointed hill. So this is the pyramid, the pyramidal mountain, the pointed hill, and the woods is like the garden. So this is Shawshank, but it's also a prison, which is what our world is like right now. So this is basically the Tree Mountain redemption. And at the end of the movie, Red, who symbolizes the left pillar, and he was literally a murderer, and he was also spiritually dead because he just wanted to remain in the prison for the rest of his life. But because Andy was such a shining light, and the name Andy Dufresne, I don't know if I have it here, but it means something like the brave man, like the phoenix type symbolism. If you look up what Andy Dufresne means, and Andy was such a bright light, and he was like the right pillar that he won Red over. He won the left pillar over, so that Red actually wanted to go to this tree island and get to paradise and get out of the prison, just like Andy did. So he goes to this giant tree, which is symbolizes the North Pole, and under the tree he finds a black rock. And when he takes the black rock out, he finds this box with the Titanic, and the Titanic also symbolizes the left pillar and the central mountain. And I'll get into that in the future. That's a whole tangent. But he basically resurrects the Titanic from under the earth, and this is like the rebirth or the phoenix rising of the dead left pillar. And to be a complete person, we need both our right and left pillars. And Andy and Red basically represent one person, and that's why they end up together at the end on the shores of paradise. So here's the Titanic, and then Red joins Andy on his yellow and blue vessel, which might even be a Mandela effect. I don't remember these colors being here before, but maybe they were. Um, but the right and left pillar meet in paradise on the shores at the blue and yellow vessel, and blue and yellow is the Columbia Jesus coloring. And with this Black Rock, also we have like that Burning Man festival on the world stage, where they make like these concentric circle dome looking like city layout, and they have it in Black Rock City. So this is, of course, more North Pole symbolism. This is, and of course, Phoenix rising symbolism from the North Pole. So these are some images of what the Burning Man festival looks like. It looks like a concentric circle dome to me, but there's all kinds of North Pole symbolism going on there, and it's all Phoenix, rising from the ashes symbolism as well. And also the Burning Man, it lasted 33 years, and then they didn't have it in 2020 because of the Pan event. Um, and then they reinstituted after that, but they had to do this 33-year thing. So it's like the Twin Tower thing also, because they started construction of the towers 33 years before they fell. So this is all very heavy symbolism on the world stage of all the same thing. And also on the 33rd year, they had this guy die at the age of 33, this Shane Billingham. So this is all symbolic too, and generally on the world stage it's negative symbolism, because they're all trying to birth the Antichrist and have AI run the world. So that's why things are inverted and upside down with a lot of the world script or world stage symbolism that we see. So then, yeah, in Burning Man in 2020, it was canceled due to this. All right, so getting back to this pyramidal design on a lot of these posters, like this Stranger Things soundtrack, like how we saw with Under the Dome and a lot of other things, they use the perception of the or perspective of the road disappearing at the horizon to be like that pyramidal mountain. And then of course here we have the Kraken. This is kind of like the dome as well, with the plasma storm and all that. And here we have the Kong Skull Island, like I showed on the thumbnail. So here we have Kong being the mountain under the dome, and here we have the twins on either side, and also the soldiers at the bottom are making this pyramidal design also. So this is all North Pole symbolism. And here, same thing with Close Encounters. The road makes the pyramid, and it's charging this blue beam energy. So the blue beam hasn't shot up, but it's like charging here. And here in this other Close Encounters poster, it's like the same imagery basically, but here the blue beam is actually shooting up, and then this spaceship would represent the apex dome. And this is likely, in my opinion, where paradise is right now. So, Jesus' blue beam shoots up into this paradise area where God the Father is. And then Jesus is, essentially reunited with the Father. And then the keys or the gate is opened for us to be able to return to the Garden of Eden. And here we see the Cocoon movies, which I've talked about a ton, but they have the same symbolism here, where in the first Cocoon movie, you have the blue beam charging under the dome, and this is the water mirror below it. And then in Cocoon the Return, the sequel, they show the man reaching up on the vessel, and here's the blue beam shooting up. So it's like before and after. And of course, this is a Mandela effect also, where the O's have merged together and formed this Vesica Pisces, which I've talked about a ton. And if you want to see more of that, check out my Cocoon video or my previous live streams. And these are the DVD releases. So here you can see they added extra blue beams and domes into this artwork. And interestingly enough, these didn't get Mandela affected, at least not yet. I mean, pay attention to it, because maybe it will be merged at some point in the future. But here, you have the blue beam charging with the dome and then shooting up through the dome. And there's a lot going on here too, that I've talked about in the past. But again, with the blue beam shooting up through the dome, Close Encounters I talked about. But this is the Devil's Tower, the dead world tree, and under the world tree too, there's this area which you'll often see characters having to go under the North Pole mountain, and this is where we learn the truth of the world. And this is like the maze that I was showing you in the Nordic, you know, uh, mythology, that depiction of the Earth with the Yggdrasil tree in the center. Close Encounters again. So Stargate, of course, has the pyramidal mountain at the bottom with the blue beam shooting up through the O portal. Here's another version. I think this is the French poster for Stargate. We have the pyramidal mountain with the blue beam shooting up. And also, this is making like the Star of Bethlehem, the eight pointed star. and perhaps even like the three body problem. I'm not exactly sure what to make of these, but a lot going on here, of course. Beastmaster, you have the pyramidal mountain at the bottom, and this is like the dome and the sword and the Star of Bethlehem behind his head, and you have the eclipse and the dome, and this a lot to get into. I just wanted to keep reiterating how many posters have this pyramidal design under the dome, and also I think these are Mandela affected. This one isn't yet, although I would another thing to look at, I would assume that this one may get Mandela affected at some point, but I think these are, you have this E into this A, the M merged with the A here. This is strange. I'm not 100% on this one, but it looks Mandela affected, like the E into the R. And this one, I'm very much closer to. I would say I'm like 90% sure this one changed because I remember this poster and it just wasn't this jammed together. Like the letters weren't this merged together if you look at it carefully, and you could see how they have like a divide here between the S and the T. So why isn't there a divide between the E and the A? So and they're just too merged together in my opinion. But this is called the Portal of Time. I mean, there's a lot going on here. I don't want to get too off track. Here's another Beastmaster poster. This looks Mandela affected to me too. The extended R, and there's some strange things. Like I don't remember this M having this like thin central point here. But of course, again, heavy symbolism. They're making the pyramid and all that. And just to show you guys, like there's a third Beastmaster, I guess. But here you have the sword going up, and a lot of the same symbolism we've talked about with like this, Kraken entity in the background, beyond the dome. And I think this also is Mandela affected. I don't remember these like pointy lines at the end of these letters. It's a little too much, but I'm not 100% sure either on that. So here's the newer Conan the Barbarian movie, where he's standing. So this is representative of like the Skull Mountain, of course. It's not just usually it's just one skull, but in this case it's like a mountain of skulls, and he's standing at the top, and he has his father's sword. And notice too how the name Conan is over the sword because this is how the original movie used to be. And this N actually might be a little farther down, and this C might be a little too connected here. I'm not 100% sure on that. But just notice how the letters are above the sword because this is the original Conan the Barbarian poster with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and this is definitely 100% Mandela affected for me anyway. The letters did not have these sharp points, and the letters didn't have the sword going through them like this. It's basically like unreadable. So like look at how this is. Like this is how it used to be basically with the letters all above the sword with the sword in the background. And now it's like a mess. Like this is crazy. Like there's no way it was like this. So I mean I would even just say it's 100% because it's just but you have like the sword symbolism, they're kind of making the pyramidal design and all that. But interestingly enough, too, the name Conan means little wolf. So there's a lot of wolf related changes with the Mandela effect, a lot of lamb and wolf related changes. And one of the things I've talked about too is how the wolf represents the left pillar and the lamb represents the right pillar. And also the lamb is like the lamp of God. The lamb is like the blue beam essentially, and then the wolf is like the Wolf Mountain, the that we've been talking about, the Rupus Nigra mountain with the opening in the center, which is like that split mountain or volcano opening. And I've talked about that too in the past. So if you want to see more of that, check out my previous streams. So here's the first Harry Potter movie. We see the castle, Hogwarts, representing the North Pole castle. And there's a scene actually where they even put a dome over the castle at the end of the story. And here we have all these boats going towards the castle, and they're making this pyramidal design again. And there's probably some Mandela affecting too with the Harry Potter logo. I mean, this T looks a little strange, but I'm not 100% on that. Okay, so here at the end of the I think the last movie, they put up this blue beam in the center, and the blue beam is what's gonna bring down the dome, but things are a little inverted sometimes with the symbolism. So here, the blue beam puts up the dome around the castle. And then, I think this is just a fan art, but this is basically what happens in the movie where there's this Kraken army outside of the dome and outside of the Camp of the Saints at this North Pole area. And here we see, Titanic. This is, of course, also the North Pole Mountain here, like I was saying with the Shawshank Redemption, how the Titanic also represents the North Pole Mountain and the left pillar, and Jack would be like the right pillar, and Rose, the rose symbolism. I don't want to get too into like the flower symbolism, but I will in the future. So here, Christmas Vacation. A lot of symbolism with the pose here. It's kind of like a Christ pose. It's also um, like the Vitruvian Man type of pose, but also with the pyramidal mountain at the bottom here and the plasma. This is like the blue beam plasma and the Last Dragon. This is like a cult classic movie from the 80s. But here you have the pyramidal design. Here you have the twin cities. So notice how they didn't even use like different buildings. They just made it so that they're twins because you'll often see the twins on either side of these posters. And then here in the center, she's making a similar pose to what we just saw in Christmas Vacation. It's like a Christ pose, Atlas pose, Vitruvian Man pose with the concentric circles and the dome over the pyramid, and it's all about the last dragon. And he also has the Star of Bethlehem here too. And this movie is a 100% Mandela Effect title change. I know not a lot of people know about this movie, but I've had this poster and the VHS tape for a long time, and it definitely was not like this with the letters all merged together like this, where you have the L going into the A, and then the R and the B A B. Even the S's, I don't think had these sharp edges like this. But definitely Mandela affected. And also, they're kind of making this pyramidal shadow here, and you have this. So it's actually about a bunch of kids finding the blue beam, and the blue beam shoots up in this spiral S shape to the top, and it's likely a Star of Bethlehem type shape there. But also, interestingly enough, their legs make like the MM for Mount Meru. So you'll often see this like MM symbolism at the North Pole too. And here's the VHS tape. So this O was just the same size. So this O got bigger. I do remember it being filled in like this though, but it was like even with the S and the L at the top and bottom. And then these letters are definitely all Mandela affected here. And in this movie, they actually play like this weird like lacrosse type of game, and it's like in this North Pole area with the concentric circles, and this is like the Earth with the North Pole tower in the center, and they even have the spiraling up at the tower. And here's where they find the blue beam. It's basically like this ball, but then when the ball shoots around, so here they're doing like the handhold, like the M hand holding with the plasma. And here you can see like when the blue beam shoot or when the blue ball shoots around, it makes this blue plasma. And interestingly enough, they give the kid like a downward facing star here. So that's generally a negative thing. But I wanted to focus more on the blue plasma. And, I was shown this actually recently, just a couple days ago. I never even heard of this movie, but, it's called Lionheart, and, here you have them standing on top of the pyramidal mountain with the sword raised and the blue beam and the plasma and the Star of Bethlehem's. I mean, it's just all the same symbolism, and it's called Lionheart, so I don't see any, Mandela affecting with this title, but, it's definitely something to, keep in mind for sure, for a change in the future. I never even heard of this movie, frankly. So here we have Pan's Labyrinth. This is definitely a Mandela effect. The R did not go down this far. And I just think there's other changes too, like the L going this far under the A and the Y being up this high. I think there's like a lot of like extensions, like the T being this small is strange. So I don't think it was like that. And here, of course, we have the Dead World Tree with kind of like the twins and the Vesica Pisces opening and the dome, of course. There's even like a dome here above the dome, so it's kind of like an apex dome like symbol here too. So the pyramidal mountain under the dome. It's mostly what I wanted to show you guys, but also this labyrinth. And the movie Labyrinth with David Bowie has a Mandela affected title too, where the L goes under and cuts into the A. And let's see. And, also this, labyrinth also relates to the maze, like we see at the bottom of the, Nordic, mythological map that I showed you. Not really a map, but just a diagram. So here's a better look at the logo, and I just don't remember it being quite like this. It's a little too crazy, like the H coming down, the R coming down, the Y going up, the T being small, the I being up like this. This just doesn't look right to me. I feel like all the P and the L is a little lower. Like the P and the L should have the same size basically, and then the A and S should have the same size as these. So it's just there's a little too much going on here. And this extended R, this is a classic pattern of the Mandela effect. There's like 100 logos at least with extended R's like this now. And Daredevil, this is another one where they're making the M shape with their legs, like we saw in Solar Babies, and then they have the pyramidal mountain at the bottom, and this is like the apex dome also at the top, and also it's the union of masculine and feminine as well. And there's other things to look at too. I mean, this is kind of like a trident. Here's that under the dome poster with the pyramidal mountain under the dome. And getting back to this North Pole area with the four continents and the central mountain. So the Arctic lands that are around this area, like Alaska and Siberia, are usually used to symbolize this North Pole area in the world script, as I've been talking about. I didn't really mention Alaska and Siberia too much. So the Arctic Circle, if you look it up, it crosses through. Just 1 second. So it crosses through these countries: Canada, Denmark, which is owns Greenland, Finland, Iceland, Norway, Russia, Sweden, and the U.S., which has Alaska as one of its states. So whenever you see any of these areas mentioned, they're usually referring to the North Pole. Of course, you have to see multiple, symbols at the same time. Like so, if something's taking place in Greenland, and then you see, concentric circles and an X or a blue beam or a kraken or something, then they're definitely talking about the North Pole. Um, and this is also why the United States and China are trying to get a lot of these territories so that they can be closer to the North Pole. And there's also like some interesting things you can kind of break down too, like these Scandinavian countries. So like Norway, this means like the way to the north. And then Sweden, I mean, like I don't want to say this is 100%, but it's interesting how it's like the southwest of Eden. So Eden would be at the center, and this land would be to the south and to the west of Eden. And then Finland also too, it's kinda like, the final land, before getting to the North Pole. And then Greenland, green is like the emerald. And, Alaska is interesting too. Not 100% sure on it, but, it sounds a lot like the Dome of the Rock, because that's called like the Alaska Mosque or something like that. So it's a similar name too. So there's a lot going on with these, names that you can look into too that I find interesting. Alright, so at the end of Breaking Bad, Jesse, so he's like the Jesse, the JC, the Jesus character in this, story. At the end, he rises like the phoenix, so he's, on fire right here. And also the Breaking Bad story ends with this movie called El Camino. So El basically means God, and Camino means path. So it's like the path taking the path of God. So the Jesus character is on fire. He rises like the phoenix. He puts the fire out here, and then he's reborn under a new name in Alaska. So here they cross the U.S. Canada border, and then this guy takes him because he's like the most wanted man in the country. So he gets a new identity, and he pays what's basically this is Robert Forster, and he's basically like the devil character. I'll get into that in another time because it's a lot to get into. But he basically has to, pay the devil to get out of his, prison world so that he could be reborn at the North Pole under a new name. So it's very interesting symbolism. And here we have Captain America. So here we have the Kraken. I've talked about this a lot, but Captain America. So he's found originally in the first movie in the Arctic. So they're traveling in the Arctic looking for his body, basically. And when they find him, they find him next to this underground blue beam. So you have the blue beam and the Arctic, and then they find Captain America with the star and all that and the shield. And there's a lot going on too with this. They have a Siberian base for Hydra in the Captain America movies. And then also, this is the same movie that has all this symbolism with the corona and the spike ball and the mask. And he's on Broadway and they show the eclipse. And, so I mean, it's just loaded with stuff. Even this symbol here on his chest, this is like the Phoenix rising symbol, basically, and like apex dome and concentric circles and all that. And they end it with the eclipse showing like the literal word eclipse right behind him. And this also, at the start of the movie, before he becomes Captain America, this is where they show this seeing eye chart too. So they divert your attention to this sign, which is basically useless. But if you look over here where he's not looking, it says, VA, you know, you could just follow my cursor. So this is all on purpose. He's in a doctor's office. And then Tomb Raider, of course, I've talked about how this is Mandela affected. This is also making the pyramid under the dome. And there's a lot of merging going on in this logo. And in Tomb Raider, they actually go to a ruined city called a dead zone in, I think, Siberia or the Arctic. See if I have that written down, but it's either Siberia or the Arctic. And here, this ring of mountains. This is like the North Pole area that surrounds these. If you look at the map that I showed you, the what's it? What's it called? Oh, the Mercator map. Those four continents, they have this like a circling mountain range around them. So that's also symbolic of the North Pole too, and it's like the concentric circles as well. Um, and they call it a dead zone. So like also the movie Dead Zone, which is another, or the book Dead Zone, it's another Stephen King creation where you kind of have like this pyramidal design at the bottom with the mist and all that, and the concentric circles going up to this North Pole area, and then the Star of Bethlehem, and like it's not blue, but the blue beam shooting up out of the top, and it's also starring Christopher Walken, which is like Christ walking. So it's okay. So in Tomb Raider, they actually are in Siberia, which is another North Pole location. So they're all going to this location, and this is where she finds all these symbols. So here we have like the wheels within wheels that we've talked about, and she finds this crystal, and she puts it into this all-seeing eye on the pyramid. I've talked about this before, so I'm going a little fast, but this eye then gets like plasma, this like lightning plasma that joins the two twin sides together, and then they go to like this weird surreal area where there's like this black pyramid, which is Rupus Nigra under the dome. And at the top is this capstone that both the hero and the villain are trying to get. So here's the villain going up the left side and Lara Croft going up the right side. And then she jumps up into the blue beam, and then he falls down into the abyss. And then when she's up into the blue beam, she gets the capstone and she's literally flying, it's spiritually flying. And she ends up in this tent where she talks to her dead father. Now, whenever you see a character's dead father or spiritual father, it of course represents God, even though in the script they don't say that, of course, because Hollywood usually doesn't mention God, or at least not specifically. But here she's basically in the camp of the saints talking to God. And this is after she gets to the top of the blue beam. Then they touch like the creation of Adam painting, where now her hand is a little bit higher than God's hand, which is how the Mandela effect has it nowadays. Here's where Trump wants to buy Greenland. This is something you can look into on your own, of course. He's tweeted about it, where Denmark says they don't want to sell it to him. And China also has like this interest in Siberia that you can look into, and they've also bought a lot of land in Canada. Let's see. There's a lot of like individuals and corporations and foreign entities from China that owned a lot of land in Canada. This is something you can look into. I'm not going to go too off into it. So in this third season of True Detective, which is another world script show on HBO, that's another poster for it. Very interestingly symbolic imagery on this poster. I don't even need to really say much. But this guy, he's basically trying to find this lost girl for the whole season. And at the end of, spoilers, but at the end of the season, he finds her grown up, and she has a family of her own, and she's like basically lived this hellish life in a prison, which again is like the Shawshank Redemption and like what we're going through. But she finds herself in paradise with the family that she's always wanted, and and also the reason why she's in paradise is she's in an area called Greenland. So like so when he finds her, he finds this place called Greenland. And this is actually the lost girl, and this is her daughter. And they live on Allegra Lane. So if you look up what the word Allegra means, it means happy. And then this is the movie Greenland, which is all about people getting to Greenland to escape Armageddon, essentially. Um, so certain people are selected. So this is like, symbolic of God's selection process, selecting us, hopefully, to go to the North Pole to survive Armageddon. And here you can see he's driving. I think this is the Infinity logo. I kind of get this confused sometimes, but the logo of the car that he's driving is the mountain under the dome. Yeah. And when they're looking at the TV, they live in Florida. So here you have the concentric circle bullseye over Florida, and the name Florida means flower. So keep that flower symbolism in mind. I'll get into it in the future, though. It's just a little too much to cover. So here they have the shelters in Greenland. Here's where he tells this guy that this is a big storm. This is like a storm that's coming that you can't just wait out. Like this is a storm, the most serious storm that's ever going to happen. That's going to basically reset the earth, and this guy isn't really taking it seriously. And then this guy is basically saying goodbye to his grandson, and he's saying, "Oh, you're going to the North Pole. You know, say hi to Santa Claus for me and all that." Because in the movie they're going to Greenland, but he says right here that they're going to the North Pole. And they're constantly in the movie saying we have to get north, which way is north, all that type of symbolism. And then this is where they eventually get to. And here I talked about Seattle being a North Pole city. I've talked about this stuff before. You can pause the screen or check it out. Um, in Captain America again, they have the movie starts basically with the Yggdrasil tree under the dome, and down here in the roots is where the Hydra villain is going to go. And the name York, like New York, it means yew tree. And the Yggdrasil tree is often described as either an ash tree or a yew tree. And they both represent similar things with the death and rebirth and phoenix symbolism and all that, and everlasting life and all that. And here's the Hydra villain, who's also Agent Smith in The Matrix. So he's basically the same character. So here's the tree, which is also like the pyramidal mountain under the dome, and the dome has several layers too, which I also think is likely how the world works. And he looks under here at the tree's roots, and there's a snake wrapped around one of the main roots. And he pushes the eye of the snake. So remember all the snake eye symbolism that we've talked about. And he finds this chest, this little chest, and this is the pin that he has. It's got like the six tentacles for the Hydra, and he's basically stealing this blue beam energy from under the tree. So when he opens up this chest, it's the blue beam. So he basically, as a villain, just took the blue beam from under the tree of life, from under the North Pole area, which is where it's charging up now, and he's going to use this blue beam energy to power up his own, maniacal villainous stuff, which I think is actually what's been happening in this world, where the ultimate people running the world who know what's going on, they know about this blue beam energy underground, and they've somehow been harnessing it too. That often comes up in all this symbolism. I forget why. This is like the keeper of the tree. I forget exactly what I wanted to say there. So here's the Seattle thing, the Northern Lights, Stranger Things. Well, these are just some other really interesting posters for Stranger Things. Of course, I've talked about some of them before in the past too, but here you have like the dome, the L character, the Kraken over the dome. Here again, the L character, Star Court. These are two words to keep in mind. They're heavy uh, symbolism with the world script, of course. The sparks too. Whenever you see the fireworks or sparks, that's third eye symbolism, our crystals sparking so that we can communicate with either Christ or the Antichrist. Um, let's see. And here, I guess this is the fourth season. I forget exactly what I wanted to say, but yeah, I kind of forget what I want. Well, I mean, here's like the X North Pole symbolism and the mountain at the bottom, but they also have the different mirror reflections going on because there's a lot of inversions. The bicycle is the eclipse. This web thing is like the spider web, which is like the kraken. So there's a lot going on. And Stranger Things is similar to Lost, where you'll learn a lot about the world script if you watch it with all of these symbols in mind. So here they're oh, so interestingly enough too, the Olympic mountain range is, right next to Seattle. So Seattle, which represents the North Pole, is directly east of the Olympic Mountains, and the Olympic Mountain is, again, symbolic of the North Pole Mountain, and, they're trying to get to this, X building. So this X building is where all the stuff goes down in Stranger Things, where they bring the Kraken into this world, basically. So this, of course, represents the North Pole. And I think these cops are saying that they make space weapons there. So the space is the space outside of the dome, but it's also the space inside of our dome, and that's the inner space that they're always trying to invade. And that's, if you think about the term space weapons in that regard, then I think it becomes pretty interesting. But I also don't want to get off on too much of a tangent. I'll definitely be talking about space in the future for sure. So this is the mist, where you have the gate under the dome, and the mist, of course, representing the North Pole, and of course the giant Kraken entity that's outside of this glass barrier that's trying to get the people on the inside, which is like the camp of the saints. So here they're almost making the M handhold here, but they're not actually making it, which is interesting. But the movie actually has a really dark ending, so perhaps it's alluding to that. Um, Here's the intro of the mist. Oh, just one second. All right. So in the mist, one of the first things that's happening is a storm on the outside, and then here you have the glass barrier, and then here a tree goes through the glass barrier. So this is symbolic of the blue beam, the world tree shooting up through the dome during the storm. And this happens right at the beginning of the movie, and there's a lot of other symbolism to it, the posters and things that you can get into. And the main characters are looking at the mist on the lake. So here, this would be the lake with the mist around it at the North Pole area, and likely around this area too. And this is where we have like the Vesca Pisces, the merging of the twin pillars, the black and white, right and left, masculine and feminine at the North Pole. Oh, he says like, there must be mist because there's two fronts meeting. So that's what this would symbolize. And here they're inside of this glass barrier with the Kraken army on the outside. So this is like the attack on the camp of the saints, and this is like the blue beams perhaps shooting out from that area. And here's the Kraken, reaching into the area trying to pull people out. And here he even says he felt like he was in the Wizard of Oz. So they constantly like reference these same world script you know uh major stories, like the Wizard of Oz is constantly referenced, Alice in Wonderland is constantly referenced, things like that. So here we had the this whole drone story was important over New Jersey. I don't want to get too into it right now, but you could see it in some of my previous videos. They also had the fog vid. There was like this mysterious thick fog at the beginning of this year. So this also was like on the world stage or to the earth itself, another symbol or like an omen, as like Jay would say, of what's to come. So the name Jersey, it means a grassy or a green island. So there you have why New Jersey came up with that, and it also means Sword Island. So the name Jersey is a really interesting name. Like you wouldn't really think about that, but it means basically Greenland and Sword Island all in one word. And it's also New Jersey is known as the Garden State. So very interesting. I don't know if you guys can see that at all. But here I've talked about this Paradise book where this guy Zen Garcia has the the Devil's Tower right in the center, shooting up the blue beam through the O portals with the X rivers and all that. So this guy obviously knows what's going on, and this is Paradise, like I showed you in the Attack on Titan symbolism. And here we have Arthur C. Clarke. This also looks like it might be a Mandela effect here. This is kind of strange. There's a lot of like LA merges in the Mandela effect, and this also could be Mandela affected too with the R into the A and stuff like that. But what I want to show is this pyramidal mountain and this space man who also looks like a flower if you look at this from a distance. And then they're shooting up this blue beam too from the center. And then, like I said, the Garden State. So here you can see Jersey means a grassy island, and also sword. So it can mean Sword Island here. And Trump was talking about how he didn't want to go to Bedminster because that's where a lot of these drones were. So he kept saying the word Bedminster over and over again. And Bedminster means baptism. And when I looked it up again recently, it didn't say going to great heights or great depths anymore on Google. But it did say that the first time I looked it up. But it still means baptism. But he's basically saying, so that he's like the Antichrist on the world stage, and he's saying basically that he doesn't want to get baptized on at the new Sword Island, which is appropriate. And he says Bedminster 3 times, which is appropriate for all their black magic and all that. Okay, so here's Bedminster, referring to baptisms. But Google, their answers change, as I'm sure you all know. So it's a little confusing, but we work with what we have. So The Incredibles wanted to bring this up at least partly because of the Kraken. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So they go to the North Pole Island. So here you have like the misty, mountainous North Pole Island, and let's see. Sorry. So here's a better view of the island in the movie. And then when he gets to the island, so basically the father is put on this mission to get this robot essentially. And when he gets to this North Pole Island, he sees an X on the ground. So here's this big X, which is a symbol of the North Pole. And then when he finds the X, this robot attacks him, and the robot is the Kraken. It has these, tentacles. And here's the Kraken under the dome. And this is like that Baphomet type pose, but I think the Baphomet pose is just based on something else, which is likely, the lightning symbol or like the plasma symbol, something along those lines. But he makes that when he hits this tree, which falls, which is kind of like the world tree falling. It's like the Kraken like taking down the world tree, so it's kind of like the opposite. And the Kraken's eye is also shaped like the apex dome, which is interesting too. So Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. Let's see. So of course, we have the Jesus character with the sword and all that, and Gandalf is like the Holy Spirit, and the Sauron Tower is like the North Pole Tower. So there's a lot going on there. And then in Gondor, they have the dead tree. So this is the North Pole area. These paths actually make an X, and then you have the central lake and the concentric circles and the dead tree. So Gondor is the city of the king, really, which is the city of Jesus, which is at the North Pole, which is the New Jerusalem. And also you can see the dome symbolism here too, with the layers of the dome and the X-shaped path, the tree. So here you can see a better view of it. So it's like an X with the concentric circles with the tree in the center. And this is also like a sword too, like the Sword Island we were talking about. See how it's like a sword? I think this is like a Lego thing or like a Minecraft thing. Let's see. So King Kong, we talked about how he lives on Skull Island, but when you actually get to the island, it actually looks like that M shape, that split island. And when they show King Kong for the first time, he's making this concentric circle ripple in the water with the bullseye, and then he and then he pulls the Kraken out from under the water mirror. So now King Kong, which is like the Christ character in this story, he's uh fighting the Kraken, which is typical. And in One Piece, this is the biggest anime of all time. There's this story arc, which is the longest story arc in the show, and it's called Wano. If you want to look it up, it's Wano, and it's basically it takes place on a giant mountain, which is of course the North Pole Mountain, and who is in charge of the North Pole Mountain is this giant dragon, kraken character, and he has an X scar right on his belly, and his name is Kaido, and he's called the King of the Beasts, and his pirate group is called the Beast Pirates. So here's Kaido, the King of the Beasts. So he can turn into a dragon. This is what he looks like normally, and of course this is like the apex dome and the tentacles and all that, and the reptilian skin, and he's got like all the symbolism basically, and he's the huge imposing force that Luffy, the main character, has to defeat after Luffy gains this new power that's called his awakening. So I mean, it's really just the same symbolism and all this stuff, that they're just very creative and they show it in different ways. So here's Kaido, and he has the Beast Pirates, which is of course like the Beast system, and of course the Skull and Crossbones or the Jolly Roger. Is representative of the North Pole too. So he has eight. So this is kind of like a dark version of the Star of Bethlehem, and then the skull is like the Skull Mountain, and it's usually just an X, which would be like the North Pole too. But in One Piece, they all have like their own symbols. So this is like the mountain which has that I was talking about, where the main fight takes place, and where the heroes have to reclaim the the Paradise Island from the beast who turned it into a prison, hell world basically. And in order to get up to the top of this mountain, you have to go up this like reverse waterfall. So the waterfall is also a huge symbol of the North Pole. You'll often see waterfalls on these North Pole mountains and all that. So here's Wano, another view of it. You have like the castle under the dome, just like the Disney stuff and everything else, and the giant mountain in the background. So here's some views of what happens during the story. This is the Skull Island where Kaido lives, and then this is like the capital city. And then he turned most of the island into like this industrial nightmare, which is what our Earth has been turned into, and what might be how the North Pole looks now. It could be like this destroyed area, from the Antichrist or Lucifer ruling it. So here in the Two Towers, Lord of the Rings, this is the Tower of Isengard, where Saruman lives, and this is also the North Pole Central Tower. So he did the same thing that Kaido did. He turned this beautiful paradise forest into an industrialized wasteland. So going back to One Piece, this is the Skull Island where Kaido rules from. Of course, there's also the giant sword. It's like the Sword Island, the Sword in the Stone, and it has the mist around it. And then there's it's just the endless with the same symbolism. So here's the storm. Here's Kaido. This is right before the end battle. So you have the plasma. He's also making these concentric circle rings come out of him. So this is the North Pole concentric circles, and these rings he's using to float the island. So now the island is floating up in this spiral of concentric circle rings, and this is also another one of his minions. It just happens to be the all-seeing eye. She's like a spy, and this is him in the dragon form with the X scar, and here's the plasma lightning. And this is just another. This is actually his daughter, and she's saying that he's going to relocate the capital, or he's going to relocate this Skull Island to the Flower Capital. So he wants to like, supplant this, paradise with the Skull Island, uh, opposite of paradise, or hell world or whatever. So this is another part in One Piece that happens way before that, and this is a totally different like story in that overall story. And this is they're basically like mermaids. They're called fishmen, and this guy takes over the whole Fishman Island, which is of course another North Pole location, and he actually has the Kraken working for him. So this giant Kraken comes out when he's told, and this character literally says, "I brought you here all the way from the North Pole. You're my slave," to the Kraken. So again, associating the Kraken with the North Pole. And having watched this show, like
They could have said anything. Like, it totally doesn't matter where this Kraken comes from. So they literally just tell you that the Kraken and the North Pole are related. And here in Deadpool and Wolverine, this is I think the biggest movie of last year, or at least one of the biggest movies. Um, of course, there's a lot of symbolism. Deadpool has the red and black coloring. He also has the X swords on his back. And then Wolverine has the yellow and blue and white coloring of the Columbia. And he's actually being like resurrected like the Phoenix because his character was like totally down and depressed and not doing anything. And then he basically rises like the Phoenix and becomes a hero again. And he also has the three and three, the 33, like Jesus going on as well. And the movie actually starts out like at his grave after the original Wolverine from this Deadpool's universe was dead. So it's a whole resurrection. The main point of the story is, or one of the main points of the story is the resurrection of Wolverine, which is why he is in this yellow and blue outfit. So here we see the X in the mirror and all that, and here they're taken to the Skull Island basically, and here you see the spiked balls that they're in, and this is like Ant-Man when he's dead, I guess. And when this helmet lifts up, it's a giant skull because they're at the Skull Island. And then the evil twin of the Professor X. So the X is like the North Pole again, but she is the evil twin of him. She rules this Skull Island. And then here we see this is a giant smoke kraken entity, kind of like what we see in Lost. And when it appears at this North Pole Skull Island, it makes this giant eclipse. So here it eclipses the sun, and then it comes down, and then the Kraken tentacles shoot down onto all the people, like what will happen when Armageddon happens. And they're trying to evade all these tentacles and everything. And the two characters, the yellow and blue and the black and red, so it's like the right pillar and the left pillar, basically. Um, they cause all these sparks to happen, and then they join together and rise up like a rocket or like the blue beam up out of this Skull Mountain area and away from the Kraken attack. And here's the just as typical Jolly Roger, like I was talking about. So the skull would be like the Skull Mountain, the X would be like the North Pole, also, and then the black and white coloring would also be the central, symbol because the left pillar is the black and the right pillar is white. This is also what we see with the Skull and Bones people. I think this basically relates to them having or them being like Lucifer's right hand men type of thing. Like Lucifer's ruling from the North Pole, so these Skull and Bones people are like the minions of Lucifer essentially. And so like the Bushes basically started the Skull and Bones, and George Bush Sr. was also the head of the CIA. And notice how it's the Central Intelligence Agency. And one of the things that never really made sense to me, even when I was a kid, was that the CIA was like Central Intelligence, but they operated in like all these like foreign affairs all around the world. So it's not really like United States related, it's more like international related. And it's because the Central isn't about the United States; it's about the center of the world. They're the Central Intelligence Agency, and then this is the shield with a star similar to what you would see always at the North Pole, and then this is like the eagle or phoenix head at the top. And it's also a similar room. Just like looking at this, it made me think of that Matrix scene where they have that shootout at the bottom of the tower. So I wouldn't be surprised if this room was based on that. It just looks very similar to me. And then, of course, at the top of the tower, you have the AI Kraken holding Morpheus and giving him needles. And this is also a Mandela effect too with the tie clips. But in order for Morpheus to escape, they have to like break through the glass, which is the dome firmament, and then he has to take a leap of faith to the Jesus character. So this is basically what we have to do is take this leap of faith. And I'll talk about the leap of faith a lot in the future, but that's another one of the key elements of the world script. So let's see, the Suicide Squad, or I shouldn't say that. Hopefully, maybe I'll give it a second so that the stream doesn't get weird on me. But I'll just call it the S Squad. I mean, it's a major movie, or actually, there's a couple of movies. But there's a lot of characters in this that are representative of the world script. The shark, of course, is like the CV. The polka dot guy is like the disease stuff. Also, there's a lot going on. I've talked about it before too. And of course, you have the X with the concentric circles over the Kraken entity. And here we have like the Pinhead character talking about the Kraken entity. This is all stuff I've talked about. Uh, but it's essentially, the Kraken is usually a hive mind, body snatcher. The body snatcher thing is huge. I've talked about that before, related to the third eye. So here you see the Kraken basically puts these little Krakens over all the characters' third eyes, because that's like the takeover, the body snatching takeover. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because this guy says, so where is this, Project Starfish now? And the starfish is, of course, the giant alien Kraken. And where it is it's up in the tower. So here we have, this is the North Pole Tower where the final act of the movie takes place, and the Kraken is up here, just like everything else. And here's the gateway with the twin pillars and it's not a dome, but it's got the concentric, gates, similar to the movie Arrival. So here, this alien ship is like the black Rupus Nigra mountain. Just one second. So in Arrival, this is like the black Rupus Nigra mountain where the alien ship is. It's even on like the green land with the mist around it. Here's the This is a fan made thing, I'm sure, but I guess there was just a lot of interesting symbolism in it with the Vesca Pisces and concentric circles and things. So here she's arriving at the area. So here you can see the mist, the Greenland, Rupus Nigra, the Kraken at the top. And I've talked about that before too. There's a lot of symbolism in that movie. Devil's Advocate. This is Mandela affected. The sea wasn't like this. And there's some other changes too. And the devil lives in this tall black skyscraper, the Dark Tower. So it's called the Penta Plaza, the PP. It's got the Rupus Nigra for his symbol here, his logo, and the square and the four continents under the dome. And this is also kind of like the split mountain here too. And the Devil's Advocate is also associated with Trump, and Trump is so heavily intertwined with this world script. But they actually filmed part of the Devil's Advocate in Trump's penthouse apartment. So, like, seriously, like just like really, like I'm not going to get too into it, but just take some time to think about how crazy that is. Like, why would Trump allow the movie The Devil's Advocate to film in his house? Here's like a shot of this is like inside of where Trump lives or used to live. So I mean, this is ridiculous, and this also might actually be the Twin Towers. Not 100% sure on that, but I know Trump had a good view of when the September event happened. Um, but yes, I mean, it's just ridiculous. So any film crew could just go and shoot in Trump's penthouse. Like it's because it's the devil's advocate, and it's because of all this symbolism. Because Trump is playing the role of the Antichrist on the world stage. And same thing with the Lego movie. This is President Business, who also is Trump, and Trump is in a ton of like the Trump character is in a ton of these movies and stories and things. So at in the Lego movie, the villain President Business lives in this giant tower, just like we saw with Devil's Advocate and Arrival and all these other things. And at the top of the tower is the Kraken, which is called the Kraggle in this. And here's like the star at the top. So they have this, it's crazy glue, but it's, you know, scuffed up. So it looks like Kraggle, but it's really representative of the Kraken. And it's also representative of the needle. It looks just like a needle. And they call it the tentacle arm Kraggle outside sprayer. So it's like the tacos. And then they released the V essentially on Taco Tuesday, but that's TT, which is 2020, which is exactly when Trump released the V in 2020. So it's all world scripted. It's all planned out. This movie came out, I think, in 2014. So whoever's making these scripts, if it's a group of these people or if it's like the Devil Piano Man and Under the Silver Lake, whoever's making it, they know the world script. And here's the tentacles, and here's the unsuspecting public getting their shots for free tacos and free donuts and free hamburgers and all the stuff that people got. They sold their soul for like a hamburger basically. So here's the movie Venom. You have the left and right symbolism, of course, and the black goo and the alien stuff and all that. And at 101, which I don't want to get too into, but the 101 symbolism is like the twin towers and the central portal in the middle. So at the central tower, Tom Hardy, the Venom character, he wants to go up to the top of the central tower. Here you see like the concentric circles, like the North Pole. Uh, this guy's not letting him up to the central tower, so he sends him outside. So he looks up, looking up to the top of the tower. It looks just like the Lego movie. I see this is Venom. This is the Lego movie. So he, in order to get up to the tower, he turns into Venom. He covers himself in black goo. He goes up to the top. This is actually in San Francisco, and it's known as the Needle Building. So he climbs up to the top of the Needle Building, and when he gets to the top, he's like a drop of black goo that's sitting on top of the needle. And he looks out at this bridge, which is like DNA, and he's saying that this is the end of humans' world, of the human world. And Dark Tower is, of course, the same thing. This is one of Stephen King's biggest stories, and it's like his ultimate like book series. Really, actually, I read like about 5 of the books. It's pretty good. I got kind of bored of it though and stopped. But I would be interested to reread it, knowing the stuff that I know now. But of course, the Dark Tower is all about this Dark Tower at the North Pole. This is also a lot of like needle symbolism and upside down inversion and all that symbolism. Um, Roland, the main character, his guns are actually made from the steel of Excalibur. So here again, his weapon is the blue beam, basically. Excalibur is the blue beam. So even though he has guns, it's still a sword. And Matthew McConaughey is the MM, so he's basically the Dark Tower itself in personified form. A lot of actors are cast because of their names for certain roles. It's something to keep in mind. Like James, like and directors too, and I'm sure writers and other people too. Like James Cameron has like the JC and all that. So here's just some images of the gunslinger, showing you the Dark Tower and different depictions of it and how it is so clearly resembles a lot of the stuff we've been talking about, with like the twisting, the spiraling, the mist, the clouds, the plasma. So I'm just trying to get a little quicker through all this. It's the plasma. So this is the movie The Dark Tower. So the kid, oh, so his name is also Jake Chambers, the JC. Um, and that's his character name. And he puts this black stick in the middle. This is the Dark Tower, and there's the ring around it. And Roland tells him, so he says, like, I don't know why I keep drawing this shape. So then Roland says it's a map of the world. So he says this is a map of the world, and the Dark Tower is in the center. And he also says that the Dark Tower creates basically a dome barrier around everything, so that nothing can get into this world. So then the kid says, "Well, what's trying to get into the world?" So he picks up this tarantula that I guess was crawling around right next to them, and he puts the tarantula right outside this dome area, and he says, "This is." Like the monsters that are trying to get into this world. So this is the Kraken. Whenever you see the spider or a big spider, it represents the Kraken. So the Kraken is trying to get into our world, but it can't because of the dome. But when the tower comes down and when the blue beam goes up, the dome will come down, and the Kraken will be able to enter the world, but it won't be able to enter the camp of the Saints. And here we have the two towers, of course. Tons, obviously both these towers represent the North Pole, and they also represent the left and right towers. Uh, and Saruman was originally good, so his tower was like the right tower that's been body snatched or taken over. Uh, and here I showed this before, and here in what is it, Mount Doom and Sauron's tower in Mordor. Both these symbols represent the same place at the North Pole, because the North Pole is like a giant volcanic tower, essentially. And this is like the apex dome, like the Saturn all-seeing eye, watcher, this like red shield that's around, paradise basically, that's been, controlling the world. Just interesting. I mean, everyone's heard of The Sound of Music. This might be a Mandela effect too at the extended R. That's kind of weird. And there also might be like the D going over the N. That's kind of weird too. Um, but here you have like the split mountain, and she's doing like the cross pose, and this music, this like frequency that we're receiving is coming from this North Pole area. And I think there's two frequencies. You can be tuned to Christ's frequency, which is likely under the North Pole. So it's like where the blue beam is charging. And then at the top of the mountain is where the Antichrist frequency would be coming from. And most people are tuned to that frequency, unfortunately. And then when the blue beam, shoots up, so Jesus goes up, and then the Antichrist comes down onto the world. And here we have Nicolas Cage. His name is a Mandela effect. The H was removed from his first name. And these National Treasure movies are huge with symbolism. Of course, you have the eclipse, and there's a lot of stuff, obviously. The all seeing eye and the pyramid and all that. There might be some Mandela effecting going on here, too. Some of these letters, I mean, why would the A be merged into the S, like this? So I think there's some Mandela affecting. Why would the N's, come down over the R like that? It's pretty weird. So here in the beginning of the movie, they actually are in the Arctic. So north, so they're actually north of the Arctic Circle. This is where the movie starts, and here you see like the concentric circles and the map and all that, and they have to go down under the mountain, and they find this, Phoenix box. It's similar to the Titanic box that Red finds in Shawshank Redemption, and in it they basically find the keys to solving, the story, solving the world, basically. And this part here is a scroll that has a riddle on it, and then this part here is actually a literal key, and it's all in the shape of a pipe, so that a normie looking at this would be like, oh, it's just a pipe. But Nicolas Cage, who's someone like us who looks at it is like, wait a minute, it's actually like a hidden message, and this could be like a key, that type of thing. And it's hard to read here, but long story short, in the riddle, they talk about this name. It's like Mr. Matlock. I don't think it's Matlock, but it's something like that. But it's I think it's the guy who actually wrote the Declaration of Independence. But they're talking. The reason that they're bringing all this up is because of this symbolism for Mount Meru. And here's the second National Treasure movie with, of course, tons of symbolism. And so the way it starts, so this is like the Disney intro, and the way the Disney intro starts is they show this river, and then the castle, and there's four rivers. So they're basically showing you that this is the North Pole central mountain castle location at the center of the X of the four rivers, and then the dome is put up over the castle. And then they show, not only did Disney make these National Treasure movies, but also Jerry Bruckheimer did. And Jerry Bruckheimer's intro logo is this road, which is the mountain pyramid. And then you have the plasma and the lightning, and then you have the dead tree at the North Pole. And then the dead tree gets struck by the plasma lightning and gets turned into the tree of life. And this is just their logos for the center for the beginning of the movie. And then that tree turns into this tree, and then they start the movie off here. And then one of the first things we see is Ed Harris. It's kind of hard to see, but his head eclipses the sun here. So again, with this eclipse symbolism, this is the worlds merging. This is Nicolas Cage, the hero, his world merging with Ed Harris, the villain's world. And Nicolas Cage is also in this movie, Knowing. And this is where I'll wrap up the presentation. So, of course, tons of symbolism here. Keep in mind, too, his name is Mandela Effect, and he's associated with so many of these world script stories and movies and things. And the O in Knowing is an eclipse. And this movie starts out with the split mountain and the eclipse symbolism. And this is for Summit Entertainment. And the summit is that central North Pole mountain. And it's also a Lionsgate company, the Gate. And also the other people that brought you Knowing are escape artists. It's like escaping from this world prison. And here's the movie. So it starts off with this, eclipse symbolism. And then this girl, she's like us. She's receiving all this information, and she doesn't know what to do with it. And meanwhile, all the normie people are just going about their business. And the teacher is calling her. Oh, so her name is Lucinda. You can see it here. So Lucinda, this is of course that Lucy name, that left pillar name, but it also means light. And oh, this is interesting. I just saw this recently, but I never had heard of this movie before, but it's just interesting. This just shows how the world script is in like everything, like not just like the fantasy sci-fi movies. This is, I assume, some drama. But you have Oscar and Lucinda, and the name Oscar actually means like divine spear or God's spear. Interestingly enough, this is why people get the Oscar statue. I might have, yeah. So, this is like the cheap, crappy devil's version of people getting the blue beam, basically. and of course, gold is like, so gold is obviously the good color too. So like, gold or the yellow, blue, and white coloring. So the teacher is calling for Lucinda. Uh, Here we have the eclipse. So she's like furiously drawing all these numbers and things on this piece of paper, and they're putting it into this time capsule for future people to solve. So this is basically like what we're doing right now. Like, you can consider, The Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland and the Matrix movies and the Star Wars movies and the Lord of the Rings books and movies and all that to be like what this girl wrote down on this paper as a time capsule for us at this time in the future to be solving and figuring out. And they bury this time capsule at this, Star of Bethlehem North Pole location. So this truth of the world is hidden under the North Pole mountain, in this abyssal, labyrinth under the North Pole. And this is where we had to go and have to go to figure out the world script and what it is actually going on here. You have the concentric circles and all that. Here's like the step pyramid. Here's the bullseye again. So this school is a North Pole location, and here they're burying the truth, basically, to be found later. And here's like the time capsule. You got the Vesica Pisces and all that, and the shield, and there's a lot, obviously to look at. So here's, the Star of Bethlehem where they're burying it, and then they're looking for this Lucinda girl. She's missing, and they find her under this North Pole building location. And the teacher finds her, and she's kind of looking like Alice in Wonderland, going down into the rabbit hole. And she didn't get to finish her message, so she's like scratching it onto this like door down here with her fingers. And then, later in the future, Nicolas Cage, who's like us, he's figuring out all, like, his son, I think, got the time capsule message, and they've been figuring out the truth of the world and what's going to happen in the future. And he finds this. I think this is likely where Lucinda lived. I haven't seen this in a while, so I'm not 100% on that. But it's a location where all this truth is posted up on the wall. And here we have the Ezekiel's wheel, all this symbolism. So God is up here in the apex dome, and you have the Ezekiel wheel with the four-headed beast and Ezekiel 1, and God is handing down this truth to Ezekiel, I assume. And here, this is similar too. So, this is Nicolas Cage's kid, and these are aliens, but they're symbolic of angels. And they give this kid a black rock. So the kid gets the black rock, and Nicolas Cage looks at it and he's just like, what is this? So, think about all the black rock symbolism that we just saw in this live stream. So Nicolas Cage, he goes on this like treasure hunting search similar to the movie National Treasure that he's also associated with. And he finds these black rocks along the way whenever he finds like an important clue, because this is all symbolic of finding out about the North Pole. So here he finds like the ultimate clue, which is like a pile of black rocks. And oh, so here you can see the eclipse happening too. So here's his flashlight, and then he walks in front of it and ducks down. So this is the eclipse symbolism, which means the world's merging, or that type of symbolism. And he lifts up the bed, and he finds out that the EE stands for everyone else. So this is basically finding out this ultimate message about Armageddon and how everyone else in the world is going to die, basically. But this movie is symbolic of what's going to happen. And here we have him facing off one of these angels, and the angel basically shoots the blue beam out of his mouth and paralyzes Nicolas Cage. Here we have the girl's mother, who she kind of goes crazy at the end, and she gets like the red door on her forehead, and she fails basically. So this is again with the red door being bad, and she has the black rock in her hand that Nicolas Cage finds, and he ends up going to this place where all the black rocks are. So he ends up going to this North Pole location, and he finds like the source origin of the black rocks, and again with the eclipse symbolism. And here we have the aliens who are angels. So that woman's daughter is Abby, this girl, and she looks just like the Lucinda girl because she's like her granddaughter or great granddaughter or something. And Nicolas Cage's name is John. This is like the typical right pillar name. And yeah, so Abby is Lucinda's granddaughter. And then Nicolas Cage's son is saying that these angels have been protecting them all along. They sent a message ahead of them to prepare the way. So I think this is like the Mandela effect. The Jesus and his angels who are essentially coming to save the people who are going to be in the camp of the saints. Jesus sent the Mandela effect messages, and perhaps other messages too, ahead of what's going to be happening to prepare the way for us, and to prepare us, mentally and spiritually for what's going to be happening. Because 15 years ago, none of us were prepared for any of this, and now they've come for us. So he's got the blue beam. They also have the white rabbits, which I don't want to get into, but I'll be getting into it in the future, of course. But this is Alice in Wonderland. A lot of symbolism going on there. Here's the concentric circles, the wheels within wheels. Um, they've chosen us so we can start over. So this is like the reset of the earth, so everything can start over. But Nicolas Cage, unfortunately, can't hear the angels. So while he did do a lot of the legwork and all that, he's still not one of the chosen ones, which is kind of like a downer message. But I think what they're basically saying in this movie is that we return to the Garden of Eden as children, so only the children are allowed to go. Um, so he's saying only the chosen must go, the ones who heard the call. So most people in this world, they haven't heard the call. If you're watching this right now, you're probably someone who's heard the call. But unfortunately, most of our family and friends and the people around us haven't heard the call, and they're going to be in that group of everyone else who's left to deal with Armageddon when it happens. So here the aliens reveal their true forms, which is basically angels with wings, and they take the kids up into the ship. And here you see the blue beam shooting up through the center. And this is the crystal ship also, which is what's inside of our heads in the pineal gland, the third eye. These are the crystals that we need to receive these messages from Jesus before he returns. And then the ship goes up. It leaves Nicolas Cage. The gravity on the earth changes, which is what's going to change also when the dome disappears. So when the blue beam goes up, the dome disappears, and then the pressure in the earth also goes away. So this will lead to a pole shift where there won't be gravity for a while, which is why people who escape underground will likely think that they're traveling to Mars because there isn't going to be gravity. But that's just a theory, but it seems to add up. Um, so then they leave, and Nicolas Cage is unfortunately left uh, on Earth, but all the crystal ships go up off of Earth. And then they show the public going crazy on Earth right before Armageddon happens. And interestingly, too, they have a van here that says Jesus is the way, uh, truth, and the life. So this is it's a very prominent sign in the movie here. So they're literally telling you that Jesus is the way here. Here's a better view. Interesting too with the extra E's. I'm not exactly sure what to make of that. They did have the EE, everyone else thing going on, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But anyway, it is a message about how Jesus is the way at the end of this, Hollywood movie. But this is also the same director who made uh, The Crow and I, Robot and Dark City. So, this guy obviously knows what's going on, and he knows Jesus is the way, which is the blue beam where the kids were taken. And then Armageddon happens, and the entire world is basically uh, wiped out. It's a pretty intense scene. I definitely recommend it to anyone who's interested in this. So here's Nicolas Cage with his family, and it's actually a positive message here too, because the father says this isn't the end, and he says I know, because he's seen he understands more about what's really happening here in the world than other people. And then here's the kids. They get dropped off on this in paradise essentially by these crystal ships, and they're running through the Elysian fields of paradise. And here's the world tree now in its full splendor with the crystal ships up in the sky. Oh, I guess I wanted to touch on Narnia too. Narnia, I think this is a Mandela effect as well. This looks odd to me, but I'm not 100% sure. But obviously, tons and tons of symbolism. The lion is, of course, Jesus. So here we have the witch. She's like bewitching, the kid to. This is like one of the heroes. There's like two sons and two daughters that are like the heroes of the story, and she's bewitching him to work for her, basically like a body snatcher type of thing. So she's giving him all this like food and desserts and stuff, and then she says, over here is where my castle is, and she points to this split mountain area. So she's saying that her castle is at the North Pole. And then when these two girls resurrect, so the lion gets resurrected like Jesus, like the phoenix, and the daughters ride the lion to this castle. And this is the castle, like the North Pole castle in the lake, in the middle of the split mountain. And then this is the third Narnia movie. You have the sword, of course, and everything else. And they have to, on board this vessel, they have to face this kraken entity with all the tentacles and everything. And they're literally throwing spears at the kraken, which is the blue beam symbolism, hitting the kraken. And of course, the smaller spears and smaller needles represent the needle and all that. But in this case, this is the heroes throwing the spear at the kraken, which is how the kraken is defeated, by shooting the spear up through it, which I've shown many times. And here, this character, he gets the sword, which is needed. So he's running to bring this sword to these other swords. So they have to combine all 7 swords. And when the swords get close to each other, they literally start glowing blue, like the blue sword in The Hobbit, also, which is representative of the blue beam, obviously. So he's about to put this 7th sword on top of these other 6 swords, and then the smoke kraken comes and starts attacking him. So again, we have the smoke kraken, like we see. So Chronicles of Narnia has the smoke kraken. Lost has the smoke kraken. Deadpool versus Wolverine has the smoke kraken. So this is representative of this kraken entity that actually does exist, that's outside of our dome, that will be coming down onto the world, and it's trying to stop this kid from making the blue beam, basically. So he eventually fights his way through it and puts the sword onto the other swords. And when all the 7 swords are together, this also is representative of the Septon Trio, I'm sure, that Jay Dreamers talks about a lot. They start vibrating and they shoot up literal a giant blue beam. And this giant blue beam shoots up from the swords, because it is the sword. And then the hero who's fighting the kraken on the boat, his sword starts glowing blue too. So now he has the blue beam as well. And this is what he uses to defeat the kraken. So then when the kraken makes its last lunge to kill him, he stabs upward with the blue beam. So this is the blue beam shooting up from the North Pole, through the center of the kraken into the apex dome area, like we've seen in Lord of the Rings and a bunch of other things, where there's a character stabbing upwards into this kraken entity. Or like, sometimes it's a spider, like the Shelob scene in Lord of the Rings. And this happens a lot. And then all this plasma starts shooting out everywhere, and they defeat this kraken. And then they have to go meet Jesus at paradise, basically. So they enter this ocean full of all these white flowers that have just bloomed, and they're on the Vesica Pisces vessel. And here's the blooming flowers. This is like the end of I Pet Goat 2, with the blooming flowers, the lotus flowers coming up from the water. These are like representative of the people gaining Christ consciousness in the wake of Jesus's return. And they're paddling through. There's a ripple in the water making the concentric circles. This is, of course, also the flower imagery. And here they arrive on the shores of paradise, and they meet with Aslan, who is Jesus, basically. And they're asking him specific things. I didn't have the subtitles. Oh, they're saying, like, is your land beyond this waterfall or this water barrier? So he says yes, and it looks again like that split mountain island. And then she says, "Will you come visit us in our world?" And then he says, "Yes, but in your world, I go by a different name, and you're going to need to learn that name." So what the author is telling us is that this lion's name is Aslan in Narnia, but in our world, his name is Jesus, and that's the name that we need to all learn and to call upon. And then he creates this portal that basically goes towards the North Pole, and he says, "I'm sending you home." Now, of course, they go home to their actual home and their house and all that in the movie, but this portal goes right into this North Pole area, and they're going home. So it's all symbolic of that, of going home. And that's the end of this presentation. I definitely, if you found it interesting, I definitely recommend checking out the next one, because I'll be getting into all the Mandela effects that relate to this North Pole mountain symbolism. And we're at about 2 hours. And let me just check in with the chat. Sorry, I haven't been keeping up with the chat, but oh, are we having some issues in the chat? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention. Uh, definitely. Yeah, sorry. Uh, looks like someone had some kind of issue. Oh well. If you have any like questions or disagreements or anything, feel free to comment below the video after it's posted, and I'll be happy to answer anything that I can. Um, hey, Hazel Fivers in the chat. Definitely check out Hazel Fivers' channel and subscribe to him. He's awesome. Uh, I'll be talking about, like I said, a lot of Mandela effects next time. So I'm sure there's a bunch that I learned from him. Yeah, thank you, Rolly and Melvin, Donut. Thank you. Oh, there were some bots in the chat. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, let me maybe make a couple. Uh, let's see. Just trying to add a couple people as moderators, just in case. Sometimes there's bots. Usually the chats have been pretty easygoing. Yeah, I appreciate you guys. Wendy. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you. And until next time, wish you all the best, and God bless.